All right, everybody, can you believe we're here? Netflix finally releasing things weekly. Sort of. This and Comey are coming out weekly, but I believe the release schedule is that we're getting them in the West like a week or two later. So it's not great, but I do want to commend Netflix. Thank you for kind of releasing things weekly. Now, if you could get them same day like Crunchyroll does, I will completely stop trashing you and calling things Netflix jail. I legit am very happy that you did this. Please release them same day. I'd really appreciate it. But with that said, hello everybody! Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the first of our discussion videos on Blue Period. We're going to be talking all about episode 1, Awakening to the Joy of Painting. But before we get to the video proper, quick reminder if you haven't done so yet to hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, set notifications to all, let all of AndyTube know that you're here, and without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into this thing. So yes, as I said, Netflix finally releasing things out of Netflix jail. It only took forever. But yes, I am very, very stoked. I think it is a little annoying that we have to wait. Like, I believe they're getting like episode 4 soon in Japan, whereas us in the West are only getting episode 1 now, which is like, okay, but Crunchyroll gets them literally like an hour later, not 3 weeks later, an hour later. You know what I mean? Like, it's a bit like, okay, like, we could maybe get them same day. You're Netflix. You know, you could afford to hire multiple translators for the different regions. You're Netflix. You could do it. But regardless, I have to give them credit, right? I have to say, like, that is super cool, and I must commend them. I am very happy. I think this is such a step in the right direction, and let Netflix know, like, hey, I appreciate the weekly schedule. Make sure that you're watching this on Netflix weekly. Let them know, because that's their metric, right? Watch it weekly on Netflix. Watch it weekly, and then maybe tweet at them like, hey, I like the weekly format, can we maybe get it same day like Crunchyroll does? You know, like even Funimation doesn't. Funimation's the worst. So like, no offense, Funimation, but your player sucks, your translations are bad, and honestly, your website's unmanageable. But still, even they get it same day. So come on, you're Netflix, let's go. I am actually excited for the direction Netflix going with this. If you can start releasing things same day, I'd be super hype, and I know the community would be too. Don't deny it, you'd be super hype. But with that said, this is a show about art, and I personally do have a bit of history with art. So when I was in high school, there was a point in my life where I was transitioning away from trying to be somebody I wasn't, and I started sort of opening up, and I got really into musical theater. But the other thing that I got really into was art. I had always felt very comfortable in the art room. I felt like I could always sort of be myself. In my school, there was this dedicated room specifically for art classes, and the wall was literally painted by the students. And then the walls, it developed so that the walls inside the room were painted by the students, and then the school actually let us paint the exterior walls of the art room. It was super, super cool. And I had always felt very comfortable in there, even before I started sort of leaving that group. And I ended up meeting a bunch of people in there outside of my musical theater friends, my art friends, who I'm still friends with most of that crowd today, like a decade later. And I am still very close with them, and I met most of those people in the art room. And these were the people who sort of dragged me away and said, like, hey man, anime's cool. Like, a lot of people like anime. The cool kids, they probably like anime too, they just weren't telling you. And it's true, as it turns out years later, everybody watches anime. Who the hell was I? Who was I kidding? But yeah, like a lot of my friends back then, they sort of dragged me out of my shell. They got me really into anime, they got me really into cartoons, animation in particular, and I had an amazing teacher. I had an amazing, amazing art teacher, Mrs. A. On the off chance that you're watching this, I have to say Mrs. A because I can't say your name. That would be, you know, doxing, and we're not going to do that here. But Mrs. A, if you're watching on the off chance, sorry I didn't become an animation director or anything like that. I had back then wanted to be like a film director or direct like an animated movie or something. Sorry it didn't quite work out. I talk about anime for a living though, still technically in the art field. Hope you're proud. But yeah, so I had an amazing art teacher, I had amazing friends, and I had an amazing time in my art class. And funny enough, I got really into history in high school. I was like kind of a history buff. I never handed in my homework because I was about as lazy as Yuguchi is in this series. I'm about as lazy and listless. Although he is actually a hard worker, I'm just listless like he was. I'm more like his friends. Like, I never handed in my work, but I was really good at history. In particular, art history. I got really good at it. Like, I could, like, tell you dates and artists like the back of my hand. I knew everything. It has been ages, though. That was, like, nearly a decade ago, and I am very rusty now. A lot of that information has been replaced by video game and anime knowledge, so sorry, Picasso. That's my bad. I should have remembered dates. I don't even remember when Picasso was born. I should know that. I no longer do. I'm dumb. Someone in the comments will, though. Someone in the comments will be like, actually, Picasso was born. I know. But yeah, bonus points if you could tell me your favorite piece of art. Doesn't have to be Picasso, just in general. Favorite piece of art. I am going to be a basic bitch and say Starry Night. But I definitely was like a big art history guy. I loved art history, especially, I think the reason why I liked art history so much was because my favorite time period when I was studying history was the Renaissance. I loved the Medici, like all of the Medici. I got really involved in like learning about them and their connection to the different artists during the Renaissance, and so that really sort of sparked an interest in art history for me, like going beyond just the Renaissance and into like other points in time. But yeah, I got really big into art is what I'm trying to say. So because of that, I really feel for our protagonist. Yuguchi is... Man, I love this character. I really like the MC. I'm calling him Yuguchi because that's what the characters in the show call him, but I believe his friends call him something else. I'm just going to call him Yuguchi because that's what the art teacher calls him, and the art teacher in the show is sick. Actually reminds me a shocking amount of my art teacher, but we're not here to talk about her just yet. We're going to talk about her in a little bit because I have thoughts. But Yuguchi, absolute legend. I will say that man starts by insulting Picasso, and I was like, oh, no, he didn't. I could draw that. Oh, really? That it reminds me of that Vine from... Wow, I'm dating myself. Like, I graduated... Like, last time I was in high school was a decade ago. Remember Vine? I am really dating myself. But it reminds me of that Vine when Yuguchi's like, I could draw that. Reminds me of the Vine, like, I could do that. I could do that. I could do that. I could do that. Like, do you remember that? I can't remember the name of the guy. But yeah, that dude's, yeah. He's the same dude who did the, like, you're my dad. Boogie, woogie, woogie. It's that guy. I can't remember his name. But he did the, like, I could draw that. I could draw that. That's what Yuguchi gives me. Yuguchi at the very beginning gives me vibes of, like, complete arrogance, right? Like, not arrogance, complete ignorance of art, right? But we find out that he's actually really smart. Like, he's really strict with his studies. He does go and hang out with his buddies a lot. He'll pull all-nighters with them. And the mood in those scenes, it's like, oh, I've literally been there and done that. And I've even been the guy who's like, I gotta go. I have to go study, right? Like, the MC just kind of dips and goes to study, right? And his friends don't, like, mock him for it. They're just like, look at this guy, genius over here, right? Like, it's, like, not being mean. They're just sort of, you know, busting his chops like friends do. The thing is, though, Yuguchi starts to sort of feel like things are sort of meaningless, you know? He gets in sort of that slump that I think a lot of people do around that age, where, like, he's pulling his all-nighters, you know, he's hitting the books as hard as he can, but he's not sure, like, what he wants to do, you know? Like, he knows that he's smart, he could probably go a lot of different places, but he just doesn't know what he wants or what he should be doing. And he's not even sure, like, who he wants to be hanging out with, right? The one girl whose name is escaping me tells him, like, oh, so you're a social smoker now, and, like, throws him his box of cigarettes, and tells him, like, stop ruining your teeth for your friends. Like, straight up called that man out. And you know what? Like, it's pretty accurate. I knew a lot of people who started smoking in high school, not because they enjoyed it or anything, but because their friends were doing it. And I remember I had this saying, and I still say this all the time, is like, well, if everybody else, like you know, like your parents being like, well, if everybody else was going to jump off a bridge, would you do it too? And the comeback was always just, well, if it's all anybody was going to talk about the next day, then yeah, right? Like, if that's the case. But let me tell you something, man. Like, you do not need to start smoking just to be like a social smoker with your friends. You could just not do that. Like, your friends are not gonna care if you're smoking or not. I know a lot of, especially like younger, impressionable people, think that like everybody's doing it, so you have to. Like, you really don't, and the people around you really aren't gonna care. You know, like, they're not gonna care. You can even like be like, I'm gonna hang out over here. I don't want the secondhand smoke, is a little bit much for me. Like, they're not gonna care. They get it. Smoking's bad, right? Like, they're not gonna care. You don't have to do that. Don't start social smoking. I really appreciate that they point that out. And you know what I really appreciate, though, is that's the moment, right? Like, because Yuguchi sees the painting in the art room for the first time, and he gets told, like, stop smoking, stop ruining your teeth for your friends. And then the art teacher also calls him out, sort of like talking about like, oh, you think art school is really expensive, blah, 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 blah. And he also sees the painting. It's the first time we see the painting. And Yuguchi actually comes back and asks like, hey, like, what, like, why is the skin green? And Mori, who is great, by the way, like, she's the girl who painted it, the girl with the glasses, like, and the short black hair. She's like, well, it's funny because, like, it's actually this, like, specific style of painting where, like, you're sort of layering the paint, right? So, like, you start, I believe I can't remember which different paints she started with in order to get that color, because now my brain is escaping me. My brain is failing me, rather, as you can tell by the fact that I just said my brain is escaping me. It is literally crawling out of my head. It actually left a long time ago. I'm running on just tea and no sleep, but got a little bit real there. But yeah, like, it leads to this really interesting conversation about the skills involved in art. And okay, confession time. While I loved art and I had a lot of time, fun making art with my friends, I was not very good at it. I just loved looking at it. I loved admiring it and being sort of engrossed in it. My friends were the really talented ones. So Yuguchi sort of asking Mori about painting and being like saying like, you're really talented, but Mori saying like, well, you know, like, dismissing it as talent, as like sort of latent talent, is like, I know you didn't mean it like that, but it comes across as sort of like dismissive, because like it's actually a lot of skill. Like, I am basically like learning different techniques in order to paint, and it's giving me shonen vibes, which I know this is going to sound weird, but it really gives me shonen vibes between this and what we find out later, where the Tokyo University of Art has a crazy low acceptance rate of 0.5 for painters. And because of course Yuguchi starts to like really want to, like, he gets panicked about his future, right? And he draws like the, so after he has this talk with Mori, I'm losing the train here because there's so much to talk about. If you can't tell, I really loved this first episode. After Yuguchi has the talk with Mori, he draws Shibuya. We will talk more about Shibuya in a second, but him drawing that, like, where in the morning it's really blue to Yuguchi, even though it's not actually blue, but like that's how he sees it, right? That is Shibuya's blue period. Title drop. But that's Shibuya's blue period to Yuguchi, right? So he draws it as blue. And this sort of like awakens something in him. And I have to show this to artist friends. Like, I have to get my buddy Ailsail, who, by the way, you should commission Ale. But I have to get my buddy Ailsail to like look at this show, because I wonder if this is like one-to-one. And any artist friends out there, if you're watching this, let me know in the comments if the scene of Yuguchi being like really panicked about his future, like not knowing what to do, and so he's not sure, so he just starts sort of like sketching, because he can't process, right? Like, he gets so panicked that he just starts sketching the neighborhood outside. And I was like, hot damn, like, I got that. Like, because when I got panicked, I would just like edit videos. Like, I would either make a video back in the day. Like, I used to make AMVs back in the day. I would just like edit AMVs. I wouldn't even upload them. I would just edit them. If I was like stressing, I would just edit. Like, because that was like how my art, you know, like my art, quote unquote. But that's what I made, right? Like, I would just make these AMVs, and that would sort of bring me peace, right? So I imagine for artists, there must be something in there about like being panicked, and you don't know what to do, so you just sketch, right? Like, that's sort of like what Yuguchi does here. He just sketches the neighborhood, right? And I just think that was really, really cool. It just made me really like attached to Yuguchi. But the reason why I say it's very shonen-y is because they talk about like techniques All right, like, this is my technique in order to make this piece of art. And then also Tokyo University has a crazy low acceptance rate of 0.5 for painters, so he's got to try his best to get in, right? He's got to find the One Piece. You know what I mean? This is a shonen series about painting. Like, is this shonen? It's probably not, but it really feels like it. You know, like, it really feels like it. And Yuguchi really feels like a shonen protagonist. Like, I could see him in, like, a sports anime, but instead the sport is painting. You know, like, it really, really feels like a shonen series. I didn't look at the tags before watching. I just knew that, hey, Netflix is releasing something weekly. I better talk about it, better bring everybody's attention to it, and that's why I watched it. I wasn't even really, I knew it was something to do with art, but I didn't know anything beyond that. Amazing. Amazing. And even the art teacher, can we take a second? Can we just take a second and sit down? Can we sit down and talk about the art teacher? By the way, art teacher's kind of smoking, not gonna lie, but the art teacher catches them way off guard at the very beginning. The first time we see it, catches me off guard too, when the art teacher's like, I want you to sketch your ideal scenery. And the one guy says some dumb shit where he's just like, my ideal scenery is in a pair of boobs. And I'm like, well, all right then. But that's what he says. And it made me laugh. I'm not gonna lie. You know, that dude, like the one buddy who's just like, my ideal scenery is in a pair of boobs, like my face resting in a pair of boobs. He reminds me of the dude from Jujutsu Kaisen. You know, like he reminds me of that dude, the absolute goat from Kaisen. Like that's who he reminds me of. Like he reminds me of Toto from Kaisen, an absolute goat. But the art teacher's just like, that sounds lovely. Like, how would you draw them? Make sure you make them nice and bouncy, right? And they're like, huh? Right? Because that's the thing, right? That's the thing is like, I think a lot of students assume that all teachers are built the same, right? Like if you said that in the room of like the math teacher or the English teacher, they might be a little bit put off by that, but the art teacher or the drama teacher is gonna laugh. Like, you know what I mean? Like the arts teacher, arts plural, not just like art as in painting. I mean like arts in general, whether that's music, theater, or art. You can tell I was an arts kid, but the teachers who teach the arts, you ain't gonna catch them off guard with that shit. They're gonna catch you off guard with their response. Like, and straight up, that's what she does. And like, I love that she is like quick to call Yuguchi on his bullshit, right? Where Yuguchi tries to like make fun of the other girl, saying like, you gotta try to get into art school. You have any idea how expensive that is? You wanna try to get into a private art school? With what money are you getting into a private art school? And the art teacher points out like, well, public art school actually isn't as expensive as you seem to think, Yuguchi. Right? Like she says, like, you're like what you're thinking of, those are private schools, and those are really expensive. Those actually are pretty expensive. But there is a public school called Tokyo University of Art, and that I think it was like 50,000 yen or something like that for the year. I can't remember the exact price. It's considering it has the word university in it. I don't know if maybe this is just a Western thing, but that's really cheap. I was like, all right, bet. So for him, he's like, oh, I mean, okay. And the art teacher also points out that he is too focused on pleasing others. She sees all the way through him into the artist that he could become. And I love that. That's the sign of a good teacher who sees like all the way through you right to your core and is trying to bring that out of you. Like trying to bring the good like student out of you. You know, like they're not going to just dismiss you and send you to the principal's office because you said something stupid, right? Like a good teacher, especially when it's the arts. I don't know what it is about arts teachers in general. Again, theater, music, art, whatever. They just know, right? They just seem to like understand children better. I don't understand what that is. They just get teenagers and they just get kids. I don't know why. They just do, right? And I like that she points out like you're way too focused on pleasing others, you know? Like you're way too focused on that. And she sees the artist in him, right? Like she tells him like, you should, you know, come back to the art club at some point. And he does, like he actually does come back. He talks with Mori, like he gets really involved. Like they bring him back when they need help, like, I believe moving, Mori's piece around, like her big art piece. Like he helps her like move that and like take down the other pieces of art and stuff like that. And I think the art teacher, like when he comes back with the thing that he sketched, like with the neighborhood that he sketched, and like his sketchbook is filled, by the way, at this point. Like his sketchbook's crazy filled, right? Like he's been drawing like tissues boxes, he's been drawing like little things he's seeing around his room, he's been drawing like the students, he's been drawing the neighborhood, he's been drawing everything. Man's going crazy, right? And she points out well, you know, like you could improve this by actually making them smaller. So it adds depth. So like instead of making all the students the same size, what you could do is actually just make them a little bit smaller, not a lot smaller, just a little bit smaller. And you can still do the same thing with the tissue boxes. You can sort of like make the dimensions look smaller just by making the lines a little bit shorter and angling them, right? Like she gives like some really good criticism, but then after that, when she notices that he sort of clutches the sketchbook a little bit to his chest, she's like, but with this, you did such a good job. Right? And she points out, like, you did a really good job with this. Like, and I can really feel your passion come out through this, right? She says the same thing when she sees his art of Shibuya, right? Like, when she sees his blue period Shibuya, right? I think that's great. Like, that, you get nothing by discouraging an artist. Like, you get nothing by being mean to artists. It doesn't matter what the art they're making is, you get nothing out of it. But if you encourage the artist, right? If you give them criticism and encouragement, that artist will grow into something really dope, right? There's a great Kevin Smith quote about, like, if you encourage an artist, they might go out there and make the thing that you love. You know, like they might go out and make something one day that is like the thing that brings you happiness, right? So you get nothing by discouraging an artist. You get everything and anything out of balancing criticism with encouragement, you know? Like, and that's the vibe that the art teacher gives, where she gets it, right? She even points out, like, when he starts to get scared, like, maybe I shouldn't do this. Like, maybe I shouldn't join the art club. Maybe I shouldn't try to be an artist. She's like, well, let me tell you this. Just leave your passion as a hobby is something an adult would say, right? And when she said that, I'm like, yes, right? Like, that's something, like, when she says something an adult would say, that translates to just leave your passion as a hobby is something that somebody who never chase their passion would say to you. Somebody miserable would say to you, right? Like, if you know what you're worth, go out and get what you're worth, right? If I might quote Rocky Balboa, if you know what you're worth, go out and get what you're worth, right? If you know what you want, go out and get it. It's yours. It's waiting for you. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard. Look at me, man. I'm doing what I wanted to do. This is my passion, and I'm broke as hell. This shit sucks. Know that you are gonna live bohemian as hell. Like, I am panicked, like, month in, month out. Like, am I gonna have enough money for the bills? Right? Like, I am panicked. But you know what? If you want to do it, there's nothing else worth doing, right? If you think you can do it, you're gonna go out and do it. And I think Yuguchi's gonna go out and do it. I think this man's got it. And man, let me tell you something else about this show. One last thing. I know I've been rambling, but I'm sorry. The vibe. The vibe. The vibe. The boys' night out, the beautiful moment seeing the painting in the art club, the music in the show, especially the scene between the art teacher and the MC that bleeds into him hanging out with his friends. The music, what sound it makes, right? What feeling it invokes, right? The scene of Yuguchi figuring out how he wants Shibuya to look. You know, like where he's figuring out like what it looks like and he's like floating over Shibuya. It's very Kingdom Heartsy, by the way. But he's like floating through Shibuya. Oh, it's beautiful. Oh, it's so pretty. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. The blue paint on his hand. The paint on his hand. Hot damn. God damn. This show is so good. I could keep gushing. Like, I could keep gushing about this show. I just don't want to keep you. Like, I could literally keep you here for, like, another 20 minutes talking about Blue Period. I could. I really could. I'm not gonna. Because you probably got places to be. But this show is so good. Do me the honor. Do me the honor of checking this show out, okay? Because, like, you would do yourself a service by checking out this show. Especially if you're an artist. For the love of God, if you watch the show and you're not really feeling it, at the very least, send it to your friend who is an artist or knows an artist, right? Like, send that show, like tell them, like, send the word, like, hey, Blue Period's super sick, you should check it out, because it really is super sick and you should check it out. And it's like, to me, this is also really important for anime in general, because Netflix is releasing this shit weekly, so people should be made aware. You should check it out if you haven't. I know I've been harping on the Netflix thing, but it's a big deal. The fact that they're releasing things weekly is a big deal. It's a little late. It's a little late in the game. They've basically made themselves synonymous with the phrase Netflix jail, but this is a good start. maybe start releasing things same day as Japan gets it, so that we can all watch it together and nobody gets spoiled. But, you know, release it the same day. But for now, this is a good start. This is a damn good start. And even to the show as a whole, this is probably the best premiere of the season. This season's hitting a lot more than last season, let me tell you. Like, autumn right away already hitting so much better than summer for me. Like, summer was so bad. Summer season was so bad. And Blue Period just hits something fierce. This premiere is so good. And like this, like there's been a lot of good premieres for me this season. And Blue Period just hits. It hits. Anyway, I'm gonna end the video here. Thanks for sticking to the end though. Appreciate it. Anyway, outro. And that's gonna do it for today's video, everybody. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to boop that up snoot, share if you care, leave a comment down below, and of course, make sure that you hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and set notifications to all. Let all of AniTube know that you're here. And of course, before we go, as always, I have to give a big thank you to my wonderful masters who help support this endeavor. And of course, I want to give a special thank you to the Masters of Masters who help support us just that little bit more. And I have to give a big thank you to Izevi, Asaki VT, Elizabeth Just Elizabeth, JCran23, Jeremy P, Matt87 Eagle, Shadow Creative, Shiorans, Stephen G, Stevie W, Trapmaster, and Tristan G. Thank you all so much for being so freaking wonderful. I appreciate it. And if you want to hear your name shouted out at the end of these videos, or you want to see your name scrolling past the screen, go ahead and check out the link in the description to our Patreon page, or you can hit that join button right beside the sub button. And that also gets you a badge next to your name as well in the comments if you want people to know how cool you are. But yeah, I'd sincerely appreciate it. It is a great way to help this channel and keep videos coming out. I really appreciate it, everyone. And that is it for me. So, you guys take care of yourselves, and of course, do clean your room. It's filthy.